Hey, what's up, guys? So in this video, I'm going to tell you why juvenile detention is far, far worse than any adult jail or prison that you could possibly find yourself in. At least that was the experience for me. So my first time in juvenile detention, I was around 13 years old. Prior to that, I had been put in like some shelters where homeless children are, and then eventually to the actual detention center. I had a very, very difficult time there. I had a lot of problems with the guards, but the main thing that's different is the actual freedoms that you have in there compared to in adult facilities and prisons. So just to begin, off the top of my head, the biggest luxuries that people have when they're in prison, not jail. So jail is where you are when you're being held, where you've been accused of a crime, you're awaiting the outcome, you haven't been sentenced yet, or you've been sentenced to 365 days or less. You can serve that in jail. Prison is for people who've been convicted and who are sentenced to more than 1 year. They go to prison. Prison, where I was, you get your own TVs, you get your own Walkman radios, you have Commissary, you can order all kinds of different food, coffee, tobacco, whatever you want. You have gym, you have outdoor rec, some places you have weights, there's basketball, in one place I saw there was fucking a bocce ball with the old Italian gangsters play. There's all kinds of things you can do. All kinds of curriculum of schooling and different kinds of vocational studies you can take. There was library you can go to. There was so much movement and activity to occupy your time. Jail doesn't have all of those things, but has a lot of them. The main thing in jail is you don't have the TV and you don't have the radios. That's it. But you still have all those other things. You can still spend money. You have access to pay phones almost on a daily basis, except when you're in a lockdown situation. You have regular visits at least once or twice a week. But in juvenile detention, I'll start with the visits. I was allowed one visit a month, and it was only from my immediate family. Mother, father, brother, sister. And they weren't coming to see me. They came one time to see me, and that was it. So the visiting is out of the picture immediately. Phone calls. There are no pay phones. You can't make calls like that whenever you want. You can only make calls through your, your social worker that you're assigned. You get to see her once or twice a week, and you can put a phone call with her, through her, while she's sitting right there next to you, him or her. So you have no privacy, and you're only allowed to call your immediate family members. I didn't call anybody because I didn't want nothing to do with them at that time, so the phone was out for me. There is no canteen or commissary. You can't spend any money. You can't have any money. You can't buy anything. There's no TV. There's no radio. There are no weights. And there's no coffee. There's no tobacco. Nothing. All right? The worst part about juvenile detention is that because there are so few people in there, in the facility, it's really not overseen well. And they can do whatever they want to you in there. The guards can abuse the shit out of the kids. Some of these female guards were having sex with the juveniles in there. It's just madness what happens in there. I've said in other stories of mine where they put me on an abandoned floor that used to be for females, which was no longer being used. They separated me from everybody else and put me down there for a month as punishment. Imagine solitary confinement in that way where I was completely out of everything. I couldn't even hear anyone. There was nothing there. Fucked up. Another thing is, we were in single man cells and we were locked in alone all the time. So in adult places, usually you have a cellmate, you have a bunkie. Later on in life, I preferred those lock-in situations where I'm in a room by myself. But at that time, when you're real young, it fucks you up. Being deprived of any social interaction, being placed in solitary, I believe, has great long-term negative consequences to anyone who's gone through it. It really does fuck you up at that young age. The main difference, as far as what I think the biggest issue is that when you're in jail or prison, you're already all adults. Okay? You're already all grown. People aren't physically growing beyond age of 18 typically, or only a tiny bit. Not much left to grow at that point. In juvenile detention, for the kids that go in there when they're very young, there were even some kids younger than me, but using me as an example, at 13 years old, I was probably 110 pounds, real small. I was very, very young. And I'm in there with people who are 19 and 20 years old still, at the oldest, because they committed a crime as a juvenile, and sometimes they have to stay in there till their whole thing plays out, which is years. So imagine even a 10-year-old could be in there, 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old with a 19 and 20-year-old, or even an 18-year-old or 17-year-old. The differences physically are tremendous. And because of that, those younger kids are oftentimes victimized very badly. And there's nothing they can do about it. You know, it's like me asking a little 10-year-old to fight me. That's basically the equivalent of what it was. How the fuck can you fight somebody who's double your size or 100 pounds more than you, or actually an adult already physically, when you're still small, you're still a child? And that is the worst thing about the juvenile detention. In my opinion, I believe they should separate much further in age groups, because you can't allow a 13-year-old to be in the same fucking housing unit as 18, 19, and 20-year-olds and not expect some bad shit to happen to those young ones. They're not protected in any way. And again, because there's lack of oversight, you're really at the mercy of these guards. And a lot of the guards are just fucked up people. A lot of them are very abusive, violent people who don't care, who don't have any feeling towards anyone. A lot of them also, to take it a step further, enjoy hurting people. So the fact that you don't have access to phone calls, especially that are not monitored, even though in jails and prison they monitor, you can call freely and speak freely. You couldn't, if you were being abused in there, you couldn't even say it because you have to go through the social worker. So there are so many reasons why juvenile detention is much, much, much worse than the adult jail and prison system. Having gone through both, I'm of the opinion that juveniles should not be placed in jail situations unless they have been given many chances and it's clear that they need that intervention, that they've either committed extreme acts of violence, killing someone, rape, something along those lines, but never for bullshit, never for, drug possession, selling of drugs, never anything that doesn't have a clear victim that's not a violent crime. I think by putting kids in jail, you are destroying them. You are destroying the possibility of them having a good future. And from all those kids that I was in those places with, I know for a fact that the majority are dead or are lifers now. They've killed people, they've committed murder, or they've killed themselves, or they've gotten themselves killed. The other small percentage are in and out of the system forever in that revolving door of the actual prison system. They can't get right anymore now. They can't fix the damage that was done because it happened at too early a stage in life. And this applies to me also. I've been very fortunate that I've been able to put together some pieces and live the way I do now and have a family and be successful to some degree, but I'm still fucked up from that stuff. It still bothers me. I still dream about some shit, and I wish I didn't. It's been fucking decades for me already. So the point of this video was just to educate you guys a little bit on what actually happens in these places and what the day-to-day life is. Juveniles are incarcerated in their actual cells for much longer times and have much less movement than the adults do. So if you yourself or someone you know, a family member, is a young person who's going through difficult times and possibly could end up in these places, please pay attention to what I'm telling you. Do everything you could to help that person avoid going down that same path that I did, because it will fuck them up. And unfortunately, that damage oftentimes is irreversible and it'll destroy their lives. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll talk to you next time.